Thank you for coming on our Ask Me Anything call series. So we usually do them on Discord, like I mentioned, and this time we're doing something different. Because there's a lot of new people, I'm going to do a little bit of reintroduction of Refact and what we do. As we stated, the main topic of today's video will be about model context protocol. We'll give some highlights. We show our integration there. And then we'll have some updates, and then hopefully we'll have time to answer some of the questions. And hopefully, again, the technology works and we will actually see those questions in this beautiful tool we're using. All right, Refact. It's, the coolest company you guys never heard of. We are open source AI software development agent and assistant. We integrate in your ID environments. It's founded by Oleg, who's here with us on the call, who used to be a founder in OpenAI back when it was open. We chance to I can hear you when you talk. I see that you talking, but I didn't hear that. Maybe just me. Anyway, we've been proud and lucky to be featured in Gartner Magic Quadrant. We partnered with AWS, featured in the reInvent events. So we've been featured by DeepSeek, InfoQ, TechCrunch, and other outlets. And here is a few mentioned on the selected logos of the enterprises we work with. In general, our product is quite complex to explain, so I took a liberty and put a couple of slides to explain that. So we have two parts. One part is the server part and the agent part. And the server part is originally it's used to hold the models. Enterprise version has all kind of team features, access management control, knowledge management, and the most requested features is a fine-tuning of auto-completion based on your own projects. And for enterprises, they love statistics, so it has some stats along with that. The agentic part has a number of different parts. It has a command line interface, it has a graphic interface, and it's embedded in IDE. Not many people know that, the agent can be run without IDE and just from command line or from GUI itself, but we'll make this fact be known wider. On our server side, we have a kind of a distributed model. We started with focusing primarily on on-prem and with the enterprises who were very focused on security. So fully on-prem deployment of models with big GPUs and knowledge management and control stored there. Oh, look, I made a type in the word knowledge. Yeah. On hybrid setup is similar thing where most of the system, the server is located on the company premises, but because models are big and some enterprises have some approved models providers, either from AWS, from Azure, you name it, then those models can be plugged in and proxied to be accessible with an agent. We have our own cloud, mostly used by either individual developers or small teams. That part is available too. And as part of cloud, we provide the latest models, which are supported there. Agentic part, right? The part which works, they actually does the main work. So it can either work with inference models and knowledge based in our cloud. It can work with a private server, whether open source self-hosted or on for enterprises. And then we also support the bring your own key using external inference there. Overall, the solution basically consists of three main pillars, right? That's our USP. So we do a lot of interesting stuff in terms of index your code base. The indexing is located on your machine. It doesn't leave your environment. And that serves the purpose to find the relevant files and be able to use them dynamically. We have integrations, which allows to run, for example, unit tests or your builds or different tools, linters, debuggers, you name it, and validate the code which generated by LLMs. And then the last part is a knowledge base, which might be located on your machine or might be located on your, for enterprises, on the service side where it can be shared across the team members. Yeah. As a testament, an example of this model working, this is just a demonstration of our test with a polygon benchmark, polyglot benchmark. Someone made a typo here. And basically, we had a mixed feedback on this. The founder was not really happy with the way we're using the benchmark because for the founder, either the main use is really just to test LLMs. For our purposes, we see that the goal is not just to test LLMs. The goal is to solve real world problems, and real world problems is getting software to work, getting software to be written. And for us, being able to solve this kind of trivial tasks is a real test of whether or not LLMs are ready to work as digital twins of developers. So we're really proud of this result. And we're going to keep working to get it to 100% and then move to the more complicated benchmarks. The reason we're all here is to talk about MCP. And there are two main events which I wanted to highlight. One was essentially 2 years ago when OpenAI introduced function calling, and that allowed the LLMs to access knowledge which they don't have. It allowed LLMs to initiate actions and basically allowed the whole agentic revolution which happened in the last year. And there was only one problem with that setup. The definition and execution of the model was purely on agent side, which basically created the need to reinvent the wheel again and again by many different people, many different companies. Smart people in Anthropic, about half a year ago, introduced the protocol called Model Context Protocol. And essentially what this protocol defines, it defines how can we find a common way to not reinvent the wheel and not redo those integrations again and be able to reuse them. This is the example, right? So before, everyone, including us, either would need to support and write off the bat the integrations. And currently, there is a way to tap into the community of developers who support MCP and very quickly integrate with the available tools for that. As Anthropic poetically put here that MCP is essentially like a USB for AI applications. So same way as we're able to now plug all kind of different tools for the same interface, this same thing happens in the agentic world where we're able to plug a number of different services for AI agentic purposes to use. So here's just a little bit of illustration to make it more tangible. So here an example of the MCP server, which provides integration with GitHub. And I just listed here some tools descriptions, which they have. So again, think back to the function calling definitions. So all of those tools is essentially defined function calls. They provide the purpose, they provide the what parameters they can be called with, and they promise to return this information. As you can imagine, that can become quite handy to start getting extra information. In our tool in Refact, we added MCP support as well. And yeah, there are basically now ability to plug in all those different 1,000 tools which are available. I saw somewhere a number of 4,000 MCP integrations. So that's huge. The community been really active with creating the new integrations. If you're not familiar where to search for them, here's a couple of helpful links, right? You can go to MCP Finder, to MCPSO. There are a number of awesome MCP collections on GitHub. You can find a lot of stuff there. And basically, once you've found the tool you need, all you need is to copy the command, which is used to launch it. Either it will be through npx, it might be with different package managers or even with Docker. It doesn't matter what tool you use to bring that's the main beauty of MCP, that it's now remove the actual implementation away from you as a agentic developer, and it allows you simply bring the tools closer to you. So in our case, in Refact, we added integrations a couple of months back, and we mainly use command line interfaces, shell. Yeah, I think apart from Chrome, where we used a native integration, everything we connected was through the command line. And there was some difference with how to support long-running projects, long-running tools like services, web services, and the individual calls. But that's been our approach to get there. So in this schema, you see that the tool arsenal, which our agent had, was, the knowledge base, the code base search, the code base editor, and then you might have some command line interfaces. For example, you might use it to run unit tests, for example, or your build. It depends on what is your particular situation. Now, with MCP, we're able now to plug in all these different services which you use. And again, the amount of use cases is probably really in thousands, but just the one which I illustrated just to show. So let's say we added this GitHub integration, and we basically had our own GitHub integration, but it didn't support images. So let's say someone implemented MCP, which support images as part of it. So essentially, you can ask agent to access your GitHub, provided you set up it and provided your access token, access your GitHub, access, I don't know, let's say specific issue which you found. And there is some information about some user who encountered some issue and there is some description. So you might want to think, okay, does that issue happens to more than one user? And maybe my production logs on the server might be of assistance here to find the relevant logs. So you might add another tool, let's say Sentry, which will have a list of error logs on your production. And then you will be able to search whether or not there are some relevant logs to this particular issue. So that will help to make your context more relevant. And then the agent will start making a solution based on your available code information, and will start iterate. And if you have your unit tests assigned, it will run that. If you don't have unit tests, you can start with actually asking it to write one. Yeah. So this is an example of how it might get used. You might add there different things. You might add Figma. Maybe you want to move from design phase to development and use tools like that. So it's really vast in terms of what can be done. Few words to maybe set up expectations. This is more my kind of rant on this because I see some people making unrealistic promises. So obviously, yes, you have now thousands tools to connect to, and that's great. But to be mindful that obviously context limits applied. So you can ask it that it will rate millions of records. The API limits applied. So if you API provider returns you, I don't know, 100 items, but you need a million items, that will be problematic. Or there is a rate limit and the amount of requests you can do per minute and so on. Yeah, while the LLMs are trained on function calls, they obviously not familiar with all these tools and all the different situations which are there. From what we see from our experiments with different tools, you might need to steer the tools, like how exactly you want LLMs to call what tools in what order and so on. And yeah, it's actually an opportunity to use the knowledge base, which we support, or save the trajectories in terms of what are the right solutions. And if you use the team server, then those knowledge base and trajectories can be shared across the team. Another point here to mention is, majority of those tools are enthusiast driven, right? They're not yet created by some companies start now support official MCP integration, but a lot of the stuff is pure experimentations. And when we look at that and how they're done, it's either partial implementation or there are some bugs or questionable design and so on. So treat that with caution and try to look how popular is the integration you use and or how reliable it is. Other thing is, its impact on your tokens, both on the input and overall context window. It might get expensive. So don't just plug everything just because you can. Be mindful in terms of what you're trying to solve in a particular case. And the last but not the least is obviously security, as was illustrated by the guys from Environment Labs. There might be now things where some instructions, which unwanted instructions might be injected into the MCP. The tool calls might be misleading, which will cause some data shared with third parties, which don't want to be shared. Yeah. So I think that concludes my part on this. So I'm handing over to Oleg.
Yay, the demonstration. So let's hope it will work today. I see your comments in the chat, but I don't see
You are on mute.
comment.
Yeah, I can't really hear you. I'm not sure about others.
It should. I don't know.
Yeah. You might want to go to settings and maybe select the right microphone, which she used.
That should be better. Is it better?
Nothing. Oh, they hear. Then it's my problem. Sorry.
So you can hear it. I can see messages in the chat. So this is an AMA session. So please ask any questions. I'll be happy to answer. So I will share my screen. And let's see. So I will use Visual Studio today. a browser and a terminal. The question, I think that there are many new people there. What I would like to know if I was completely new to MCP, this is the topic of our demonstration today. So let's say you are looking through a list of MCP servers and you liked one. For example, this a very simple MCP server that can search the DuckDuckGo search engine. So let's see if we can install it and use it. So first, let's take a look at what they tell us to do. Some long command there, some long command over there, and we need to change a file over here. And there are many new things like Smithery and UV and Claude desktop map. I think many people don't know what that is. So let's start with Claude desktop. That is this application that is written by Anthropic, and it can use MCP service like this. You need to change config file. So with this knowledge, we could look at this line and make sense of it. What this will do, and npx if npm package manager, npx is the same thing, but it runs some code. And then the parameter there is to change configuration of Claude. The problem there, I see that it runs someone else's code and it changes a random file on your computer. My first question is, do we trust this thing called Smithery? The website, if you go to about the company, it doesn't say anything. So as far as I'm concerned, this is an anonymous project, and probably you shouldn't run random links on your own computer. So let's read the other thing. I believe most people know what is pip install, but they have something new there. So what is that? I first discovered UV together with MCP, as was promoted by Anthropic. And that is just a faster version of pip. That's what it is. So what we now see that we can install this MCP using pip, or a faster version of pip that is called UV, and pip becomes a command of the UV utility. So to check if this name is valid, it's better to go to PyP and check if this project exists and the name is. Finally, they use UVX. What does that mean? In the same way, NPX is a different version of NPM that will run the code. UVX will run this. So before we do that, let's check out if we can understand what this MCP server has inside it. So that is a very simple project. It has UV there and one source file. So let's take a look. It uses beautiful soup to parse HTML. I'm assuming it has rate limiter. One call that is called search, and another call that is called fetch, and that's all. It uses another library and some sugar, and there you go. This is the whole MCP server. Very easy. What I would suggest to people, you can write your own one and you can get famous by submitting your favorite tool to lists like this. And it is essentially a little bit of glue between a agent and some kind of a tool that you are connecting to. Okay, cool. Maybe someone has questions about this. UVX and then DuckDuckGo MCP server. What that does, it will launch this process and then agent will communicate with that using JSON RPC. Oops. Yeah. JSON RPC. So let's try to add this to Refact in integrations. MCP over there. Global, I will name it DuckDuckGo TDG. And the command is UX apply, save it successfully and test. Let's see if it works. Search, and it wants confirmation for the search. So we will allow it. And the inside is this. It looks for Refact agent. And those are the results. It says that it's happy that it works and it needs another confirmation. We can turn it on. Search is safe. So there, the confirmation once done means confirm all of the commands. So we can remove this, apply, and there we go. It will no longer ask for any confirmations. And the text that it processes through beautiful soup, something. There we go. It was very easy to do. Yeah. Questions about this? I don't see any. So what is it good for? One thing is it's good for is filling the context with useful information. There I have Postgres. Yeah. Let's see if it works. Yeah, it does. Let's imagine there is a table and I don't know the structure of that table. I just want to write code. Do you see table? You can just talk to your database using natural language. There we go. Let's pick this and ask it to show me. There we go. I will create some program that will use the data without me copy pasting anything. So let's do this. Okay, there's one Y. Use REST API and PG2. I just know those libraries to save time. To turn HTML table out and my yeah, let's just do it. If it doesn't work, we'll fix it. Okay, so we'll just allow it, and we have this code. The immediate problem that I see there, those are not real user and password. So let's ask it to fix it. Use and file. Oh, it tries to create one. We will stop it. We can correct what it tries to do. Read it. There we go. not this read.env. There we go. So we have a lot of passwords over there that it will just use one way or the other and try to run. Here is their address. And there we go. A table that was generated by the model. And I didn't even think about the structure and how to do this. And you have your code there that you can change. By the way, models they often produce code that is longer than necessary. So you can just ask it to make it short. So let me try another thing. Add more celestial body. So let's see if this will be successful. There we go. Much more. If you're using Refact or models in general, they are very good at prototyping and filling databases, and you feel like you're 10x more productive. If you have existing code, maybe you will feel you're just 2x productive. But when you're trying something new, it's just fantastic. So the final, I still don't see any question. Ask if you're interested. And finally, what I would like to show you is this. Let's say I have this. Let's say I have Kubernetes cluster and I have some pod over there that I need to check the logs. So let's just tell the model to do it instead of me. Humans might need to know about the solar system. Yeah, you can ask the model to do new stuff, and then you can just run the program and see what happens. That is called vibe coding, and it is also very good for prototyping. If your programs is becoming larger, it's harder to do. Well, for prototyping, that is very easy and pleasant experience. So let's try to ask our model. I'm opening the chat and I'm writing this and tell me that the needs. So it will call MCP service and it will ask for confirmations. So I just found this MCP server today, and I found that it works 50% of the time. Now I see that it worked, but previous couple of times it didn't. It just says timeout by communicating with something, and it's not helpful. If you're looking at a long list of MCP servers like this, I would assume at least 50% of them just they are at initial stages of their development. And you will find that some of them don't really. So you can file a bug if it doesn't, because most of them are open source. But what do you do if it doesn't? The answer is use shell to do the same thing. It's interesting that you see that the same thing. It's interesting that the command line is the original MCP. You have a lot of tools, more than 4 1,000 in the command line that the agent can call. And you can do a lot of stuff just by calling the shell. There we go. The same thing. It called for logs and it went through them and it says that my pod is all this is all my demonstration today. So we learned that there are plenty of third-party services like this one. Make sure you trust them before you run something like this on your computer. And it is very easy to write MCP servers. You can write one yourself. It is good for providing context for your new program. And if some of it doesn't work, probably a command line version will. So that this is my advice for surviving MCP in this at the present moment. I will take a look at the questions. It's fun to co-create is the point. Yeah, sure. Any more questions? I'll be happy to answer.
Take a look. So yeah, there are just a couple of more updates to finish with our plan part. For those who are our long-standing supporting users, here's a few updates of the latest months as changes to and improvements in terms of how the tracking requests work. Again, unfortunately, in our cloud setup, we have to do this, but we're making it better and better. And I think the feedback so far was great. We also improved our work with the context. We added the chat compression logic and mechanism, and they help to keep working with the long chats while optimizing the chat context and compressing it. Think mode has been added now and supported. The think mode is essentially turning on the reasoning capabilities of the reasoning models, such as, for example, Claude 3.7 or OpenAI models like O3. And yeah, there have been a number of fixes and improvements. We added now a lot of fixes for our JetBrains users. We know that there's been some neglection in the past, so those have been improved. For all who haven't had a chance to try Agent, let's go ahead, scan the QR code or just go on the website. It's super easy to try and it actually have a very generous free tier.
Yes, by the way, all that I have demonstrated, I was doing this on a free account. So you can do this too. Please try.
Yeah. Yeah. And in addition to that, we have a pretty active Discord community. So those of you who are hardcore developers and using Discord, please join us. Love to have a chat there. Yes. So I think that's all on the prepared part. If anyone have any questions, this is Ask Me Anything part. Yeah, just drop them in and hopefully we'll see that. Okay. All, do you want to take that? You are on mute. Yeah.
Ask it to add anything that humans might need to know about the solar system. Yeah, sure. You can develop your program in whichever way you want. It's much easier now with agents. Just start doing stuff. You will find that you don't need your own programming skills to create a pretty complex things. It will take you only to a point after which you need at least some skills to know what you're doing. But you can do surprisingly interesting things with just telling the agent to do stuff. I hope that answers your question. Right, right. It, uh, I downloaded the main MCP from Tropic Cloud on my desktop, but it seems make my computer run slower. It might be. And by the way, if you add more and more MCP servers or on into Cloud or into our agent, it will slow down your computer because it's a separate project that will take up CPU and memory. Hopefully not much, but because it's a small program. But what it also does, all the tools that MCP provides, they will be present in all the requests that you do. And it looks up your context. The more tools MCP has, the faster this will happen. And we're thinking about some ways to mitigate that. Maybe the agent should enable certain MCP first, and then it will have a whole list of tools. I'm not sure if that answers your question about Claude, but that is totally possible.
All right. Things like we don't really have more questions. I have to admit, Discord community was much more challenging us on those topics. Yeah. I don't know. We can give it a couple of more minutes. And
Background context. By the way, it's much easier to learn if you have an agent to talk to you. You just can ask a question or in instructions, how do you do one thing or the other? And it's very helpful to learn this way and very efficient. So if someone learns how to write programs, be an engineer, I would recommend to use Refact. It's good for that too.
thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Yay. Thank you all.